All right, I would like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission on Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. May I please have a roll call?
Chair Feck,
Here.
Vice Chair McGill,
Here.
Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Chang,
Here.
Commissioner Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton, Commissioner Unander LaBerge.
Here. All right, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Chair Feck, the only change is that we will not have a youth council report today.
Okay, thank you. Is there any written public comment? We received that in our packets, but I don't think there was anything else, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then may I have the reading for the public comment rules and Zoom rules, please?
For those who wish to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand functionality in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. For those who wish to speak on an agenda item later in the meeting, please raise your hand when the item is under discussion.
Is there? Oh. Okay. And then for any public comment, so any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. Do we have any? I don't have any speaker slips. Okay. Great. So no youth council report. We can move on to commissioner committee assignment reports, and I'll start on my left. Commissioner Aldana.
Well, it was been very busy, but out in the community, but nothing pertaining to the Parks and Rec.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clark.
Good afternoon. I attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting at the beginning of the month, where we visited and discussed each tree on the agenda. We'll get to that later. And this morning, I had the pleasure of attending the Integrated Pest Management Advisory Committee meeting, and the committee discussed and approved the use of various pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides at parks, park facilities, and open spaces. Of note were fungicides on the Morton Bay fig tree were approved, termite fumigation at different park facilities was approved, and then some glyphosates were approved after much discussion and evidence-based research presentation at certain open spaces for arundo, eucalyptus, sprout, and pampas grass control. I just want to emphasize that I was really impressed by the presentations of the IPM staff. Made it very apparent that alternative methods of invasive non-native plant control have been considered and attempted prior to the use of any of these herbicides. So thank you for all the work you put into that presentation and what you do for our parks.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chang.
There was a meeting of the Gulf Advisory Committee. A number of administrative matters were addressed, different reports, Gulf maintenance report, but everything seems to be in order, and things are budget-wise coming in about where they were expected, or even a little bit better than that.
Okay, sounds good. Vice Chair McGill.
Okay, I was unable to attend the IPM meeting this morning, but Commissioner Clark's reported on that. And last week there was a Park Foundation meeting, reviewed financials, and primary business was reviewing and approving some revised guidelines for umbrella groups within park.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Unander LaBerge.
Thank you. I do not have any updates to report for the art show.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. And Commissioner Lesnar Buxton.
I was unable to attend the youth commission meeting. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. And I did attend the youth council meeting this week. They've been very busy. They did votes for their new chair position. They also had new member interviews. They're also planning their trunk or treat preparation is in discussion for the Halloween holiday. They're working on their Youth Making Change grant. They're also working on a gun control ordinance event that will be happening, and they'll be bringing that to the Parks and Recreation Commission soon with more details. But that will be taking place November 13th at 5:30 here in Chambers. So anyone that wants to participate, encourage you to check it out. And they've also been working on some like creek cleanup initiatives, specifically at Oak Park. So they've been really busy and looking forward to whenever they can come and present to us. And that's all I had. So we can move on to ceremonial items. Oh, sorry, commission and staff communications.
No additional communications.
Okay. Ceremonial items.
So Chair Feck and Commissioners, I think it's quite timely that I can share with you that Brett Volpe was recognized for 10 years of service to the city. Brett is our street tree supervisor, and he will be presenting the street tree items to you today. Brett actually was part of our forestry crew and started there and has moved into his new position, I want to say 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And does a great job guiding the crew, working with the public, working with park staff, and obviously also working with Nathan as well. So we're really pleased to have him on board in our organization.
Nice, congratulations. That's really exciting. That's a big milestone. Anybody have any comments?
I do get to work with Brett once a month when we do the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting, and I'm really impressed with his knowledge and his ability to wrangle not only the staff members, but also he's really good at communicating with the public and providing information and giving staff feedback too. I think you're awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, congratulations. All right, so we'll move on to consent items. Let's see, summary of council actions. There was an attachment. Any questions or comments on that? All right, and then minutes for action. The recommendation is that the commission waive the reading and approve the minutes from the regular meeting of September 27th, 2023. May I have a vote or a second?
I'll second.
Can we have a vote, please?
I just have a question. Who made the motion?
I made the motion,
Okay.
and Vice Chair McGill, second. All right, thank you very much. And that moves us to our street trees.
Good afternoon, Chair Feck and Commissioners. The first street tree removal item on our agenda is a liquid amber American sweet gum located at 3790 San Remo Drive. The application states hardscape damage and a lifted sidewalk as the main reasons for the request for removal. The STAC committee met on site to look at the concerns and commented that the tree was in fair health and reasonably maintained. In looking at the damage to the property, specifically the uplifting of and cracking of the foundation of a floor, specifically the manager's apartment area, the STAC committee was unable to determine definitive evidence that the street tree was the sole cause, and secondarily felt that the uplift of the sidewalk was pretty minimal. There was also discussion from the STAC members that the tree mitigation of pruning the roots in this area wouldn't necessitate removal. So with that, they recommend to the commission to deny the removal as proposed.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, question. Is it okay to ask, what's the solution to the sidewalk and all the cracking? I mean, what's going to happen with all that?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Aldana, the typical city process is to shave the sidewalk, then patch it, and then eventually you get to removing the panels that are affected, cutting roots, and then replacing it. But that's all inside of, city efforts usually.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Chang?
What are some of the other potential causes for that kind of damage to the floor?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Chang, the committee looked at the property, and as you can see in the photo here, there's a lot of other woody plants that are around that area, as well as just an aged property. So that was a large part of the discussion at the on-site.
Thanks.
Vice Chair McGill?
Thank you. So I guess if there was to be root pruning to address the uplift that's up by the foyer area of the apartment, that's just going on a presumption that there's some cause. What, is it a once and done in terms of the root pruning, or is that something that if it was the tree that was involved could come back? How does that work?
Chair Feck and Commissioner McGill. Usually I would say it's a once and done, and it's done once it's exposed. So when the repairs are made, we can look at the roots at that time. And you can also put in defensive measures such as root guard, and that would block further infiltration of roots at that area. Yeah.
Commissioner Clark?
If I'm remembering correctly, at one point, I think it was Duke, had mentioned the possibility of denying the request without prejudice so the owners could trench and see if it was actually roots from that tree doing the damage. But I don't remember, why did that drop off the table? Do you remember?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Clark, I don't recall. I think it was just that overall discussion is that once the property was fixed or in the process of being repaired, we could tell definitively one way or the other.
Yeah, Chair Feck and Commissioner Clark, I think in this instance, when the owner undertakes work to address the situation in the apartment, it will reveal perhaps some of the issues, and that root pruning would be the city's method of addressing that. At the time of root pruning, the city would then determine if such root pruning destabilized the tree, whether the tree would have to go. But potentially the repair could be done if the trees involved, the root could be removed and the tree could be retained, which would be, probably the best case scenario if indeed the tree has anything to do with this concern.
Thank you.
All right, do we have anybody online wishing to speak on this? I don't have any speaker slips.
No hands raised.
Thank you. Any other comments, or is anyone ready to make a motion on this item? Vice Chair McGill.
I still can't get used to having to push that button. I don't have any comments. I am prepared to make a motion to concur with the removal at 3790 San Remo Drive on the basis be addressed.
Second.
Okay, hold on one second. We're going to. Oh, you were? Okay, we got 2 seconds. Okay. All right. Thank you. May we have a vote? Thank you very much. On to the next.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, the second item on our agenda today is a setback removal request of 2 Tipuana tipu trees located in the setback of 319 Oceano Ave. And the application has concerns about growth rate, the size of the trees, and hardscape damage. When the STAC committee met on site, they commented about the size of the trees in the particular area they're at, and commented that they're healthy, they're big for the area in which they are now existing, and looked at the application which proposes to replant 2 trees in replacement. It was pretty straightforward. The committee recommends that the commission approve the removals as proposed, with the condition that the owner replace with 1 setback tree and 1 street tree, with the finding that good forest management principles would be observed with this finding.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this one? All right, do we have anybody online to speak to this tree?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. There are no hands raised.
All right, thank you. And I don't have any speaker slips, so would anybody like to make a motion? All right, Vice Chair McGill. Oh, sorry.
Recommendation to conditionally approve the. Thank you. I move that we concur with the STAC committee's recommendation to conditionally approve the setback removal request at 319 Oceano Avenue on the condition that 2 trees are planted, 1 in the setback and 1 street tree in front of the house.
Commissioner Aldana?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a vote. Oh, sorry.
Vice Chair McGill, would that be with the finding for the principles of good forest management?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, with that, with the finding would be it's in principles of good forest management.
All right, thank you very much. That takes us to Aliso Street.
Okay, Chair Feck and Commissioners, the third item on our agenda is a setback removal of a Shinnis or California pepper at the address of 711 North Aliso Street. The application states concerns about the tree in proximity to the home, electrical wires that run near the tree and through it, as well as a dog that is allergic. The STAC tree met on site, and discussion took place that minor pruning can really mitigate a lot of the concerns, as well as there has been findings that there's probably a better way of dealing with allergies than removing trees. And again, it was pretty straightforward. The committee recommended to the commission that we deny the removal as proposed.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions from the commission?
Yeah, I do have one comment.
Hold on
but
one
it-
second. Vice Chair McGill.
No,
Oh,
sorry.
okay, go ahead.
but it's pertaining to the parkway. 'Cause- So whenever, if I could touch on that, let me know when.
All right, Vice Chair McGill.
Okay, I've got two questions. I guess in terms of the pruning, I mean, we've had this discussion about power lines and pruning, countless times. With a pepper tree, which is, I know, a fast-growing tree, how much pruning, how often, is question number one, so it's really around the pruning. And then the second question is really around the allergies. It's kind of, and we've had this conversation about allergies not that long ago down with pepper trees down in the Veronica Springs area. So with human allergies. So this is not an unprecedented conversation, but I notice in the recommendation it's kind of a generic other ways to deal with allergies. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Chair Feck and Commissioner McGill, generally I would say that every 3 to 5 years with a tree in that proximity or around those type of electrical wires, they're not going to be placing, in normal circumstances, the tree's not going to place undue pressure or growth at any level beyond that. So that's kind of the pruning requirement that the city goes by. And in terms of allergies, the committee's discussion was that possibly the dog could be put in a different area or to look at some type of way of dealing with the allergy rather than them voting on a sort of a precedent-based thing of like, if there's allergies present, then we really should consider removal. That was kind of the general discussion prior to voting.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Clark.
If I remember correctly, it's one of those other ways of handling allergies. I believe the allergen falls from the tree when there's a front yard and a backyard, am I correct? And so the front yard is really small, the dog wasn't present when we were there. I think a lot of dogs, I don't want to stereotype, like to hang out in the backyard where it's bigger. And in that case, it wouldn't be running through and getting on paws in itself. Just something I remembered.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we can move to, I have a speaker slip. Paula Hink, am I pronouncing that correctly? Okay, you can please come forward to the microphone and they'll be. Oh, yes.
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
No, you don't have to.
No.
Yes, actually, to speak in public comment, you do need to come to the podium. Thank you.
Heard, a couple of questions about the allergy issue with my dog. And if anybody here has ever had a dog that gets hot spots, and I mean I have a 20-pound dog that'll get hot spots that are this size, she's already on antigens for the last 2 years. She's been allergy tested by Dr. Greek, which we put on our request as well. We don't go lightly into asking to remove a tree. We have many, many trees on our small property there, and we'll replace it with a tree that she's not allergic to. She goes to work with me every day. She walks out that front yard and back in every day. I have a bad back. I would carry her if I could, but I can't. And we clean up all the time, and we still have, you all know what the pepper trees are like. We planted that tree because it's a lovely tree. We got the dog. We spent $1,000 on allergy testing and found out that she's allergic to 2 things. One is the pepper tree, and one is tea tree oil. We can keep her away from tea tree oil, but the only way to help her with the allergy is the tree. I'm sorry, it's an emotional thing, but she's a great little dog, and there are a lot of things in our neighborhood that are difficult. We live on the Lower East Side, and this has just sort of added to it when I saw that the recommendation was to deny our request to remove the tree. It was very disappointing because I felt like we're good citizens of the city of Santa Barbara. We walk all over town. We frequent every business here in town, and my feelings were very hurt. I thought that was maybe a question could have been asked, sent back to us, like, what do you mean when you say allergies? So I wasn't coming into this lightly going, oh, my dog has allergies, we want to get rid of the tree. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank
So
you.
I appreciate you listening.
Yes, thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming. Okay, any other questions or comments? Is there anybody online wishing to speak about this?
No hands are raised.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Clark.
Thank you for your courage in getting up and talking to us. And I do want to recognize where you're coming from. A lot of us have dogs. Some of us do dog rescue. Dogs are like really big. When the Street Tree Advisory Committee makes visits and goes to people's personal property, they're thinking not only of you, but they're thinking of the whole community. And our fear is always that if we take out one tree because the dog has allergies, then if you imagine how many dogs and people have allergies in the city, then we might actually denude it. So it's not that they were discounting you and your feelings. They're very much appreciated, and you're being a great citizen and applying to remove the tree and, frequenting Santa Barbara businesses. All of that's appreciated. They didn't mean to dismiss you, and I'm sorry if it feels that way. Really sorry.
Thank you. Vice Chair McGill.
Oh, I hate these. Yeah, I am not a dog owner, but I am a loving dog aunt. And my niece has allergies, and I have seen, I've seen that can be difficult. My dog niece. What I'm really struggling with, and it comes down to a little bit of what a lot of what Commissioner Clark is talking to, and it wasn't that long ago. It was Veronica Springs, and it was off of Palermo. Less than a year ago, I think. It wasn't long ago. And it was pepper trees. It was the fruiting pepper trees. And it was the same conversation, only with human beings instead of dogs. And I think we struggled mightily, and at the end of the day, the trees are still there. And I have the same struggle, and it comes down to the value of the tree. Well, it's not even a value proposition. It's how do you walk that walk and make that and achieve that balance. And it's hard to take down the trees, and particularly when we haven't taken down the trees not that long ago.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other speakers or slips or anyone online. Yeah, this is definitely a difficult one. I'm wrestling too. I don't know if anyone's prepared to make a motion or if there's any other questions. I think Commissioner Aldana, you had something to say earlier. I don't know if you wanted to go back to that.
Well, it doesn't pertain to the pepper tree, so I'll hold.
Okay, sounds good. Commissioner Chang?
If this is appealed, do they need to, when bringing it up to City Council, is there a need to, follow principles of good forest management when they're appealing? Like, what's the framework that City Council has?
Chair Feck, Commissioner Chang, sorry. If the commission upholds the committee's recommendation and denies removal of this tree, and the applicant has the ability to appeal the decision to the City Council within 10 days of this action, and then the matter would be placed on a future City Council agenda, and the council would consider all of the information provided from Street Tree Advisory Committee, the commission, as well as the applicant, and make a decision as to whether to grant the appeal or uphold the decision.
Okay.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, go for it.
although my heart doesn't want to do it, I'm going to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation to deny the removal of the pepper tree.
I'll second.
All right, may we have a vote?
With,
Oh, sorry,
Uh-huh.
want to say without
Um,
prejudice or?
no, that was just, my discussion would be that I think that's a bigger conversation than we can make right now, whether or not allergies are a valid reason to remove a tree. I don't think at this moment we're prepared to start that. But again, you can appeal to city council. Thank you. But we'll vote.
Okay. Was there any other discussion? Okay, yeah, we can have a vote, please. All right, thank you.
Do you want to read the appeal thing? Or did we already do that once?
All right, sorry, we can go on to the next one, to the next tree.
Do you want me to say the appeal?
Oh, she already left.
Okay.
All right, we can go on, thank you.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, the next item on our agenda is a setback removal request of a American Sweet Gum located at 826 Grove Lane. The concern on the application was hardscape damage, specifically underground utilities, the uplift of sidewalk, and the concern that it would get worse over time. The Street Tree Advisory Committee met on site and looked the area over. They felt, again, that the sidewalk lifting was minimal and that currently they could find no damage to the area, and recommends to the commission to deny the removal as proposed.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or questions? Vice Chair McGill.
I think you just answered the question, but I'm going to do this for the absolute avoidance of doubt. When I read it, and then also in looking at it yesterday, I mean, we could see the sidewalk uplift, but the way I read it was that the concern was more about potential damage than actual damage. And am I reading it correctly that that's what you guys observed?
Chair Feck and Commissioner McGill, yes, it's concern for future damage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I don't have any speaker slips on this. Is there anybody online?
Yes, we do have someone online, Tim Berger. Tim, I'm going to allow you to speak. Please unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Good evening. Can you hear? I just want to say that our goal here is to not make Santa Barbara less beautiful. On the contrary, we want to keep it the way it is and be one of those streets that people enjoy walking up and down on. So it's not lightly that we want to remove this tree, but we would like to respectfully disagree with the Street Advisory Committee's recommendation. Looking at the city bylaws in chapter 15.24.080, this is not a historic or a specimen tree. It's not even on this street trees designation list. I'd also like to point out that the advisory committee also admitted that this tree is much too large for the size of our lot. Another point is that the number of trees we're proposing to replace it with will be greater than what's there now and more appropriately sized. And the historic oak trees on the rear of the lot will remain untouched. There are no adjacent trees, so the tree density will increase as the two new trees mature. Again, there's no adjacent trees, so there will be no effects on other trees nearby it. This was planted by a previous owner that and we didn't own this property when when the tree was planted, so we didn't really have a say in it. And then the last item, we're hopeful that the replacement trees will grow the tree canopy in the area. Our concern with the damage is that there's a water inlet line running just to the left of the mailbox there, and you can already see sprouts from roots coming up on the opposite side of the line. So it's pretty clear to us that the tree's root system is extending far past the sewer inlet, and that's a concern for our water utility. And then also on the flip side, it's fairly close to the house as well. So if the roots are growing that far in that direction, they're definitely
Thank
extending
you.
underneath.
Sorry, the timer went off, but thank you so much for sharing. Any questions, comments about this one? Vice Chair McGill.
Yeah, just a quick question on the 2-to-1 replacement proposal. In terms of like for like or canopy for canopy, you know, given the length of time it would take for the new trees to grow, I mean, any comment about the value of the existing tree from a canopy perspective and a carbon sequestration perspective versus the new trees?
Chair Feck and Commissioner McGill, my comment would be probably that it would take 10 years to get 2 trees to equal the value of that tree, if everything went right.
Question, so for kind of the concern about the incoming water line and it getting close, is there like anything proactively they can do to prevent that? Because it sounds like this is more of like a preventative action, like Vice Chair McGill mentioned, versus like just taking it all out, if there's something they can do now to like kind of mitigate that a bit more.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, I think it's our arboricultural understanding of that tree species and the setting in which that is that it's quite okay to prune roots, especially around utilities. Those trees have a big root system, and we prune them all the time for stuff like this. So, and that's sort of the understanding of the committee when they visit a site like this, is they know that those things can be done, and it's not too expensive to the pocketbook. It's not difficult. It can be done. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Sorry, can you just speak to the probability of root issues materializing and like elaborate on the cost of those effective strategies to address it?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Chang, I don't know the cost of each situation. It depends on the approach the contractor would take or the homeowner. But in all likelihood, every 10 years or so, I think a person can look to have to prune a tree that's in that location, and that type of species, you'd have to prune certain roots around utilities, just to be on the safe side where your mind can rest at ease.
Commissioner Clark.
Wasn't there also, maybe you just mentioned it, and I didn't listen, but was there also a mention of a root, they'd kind of pointed where they could put a root barrier? There's already like a little kind of faux barrier there, and the committee had said, well, what if they put a true barrier? Do you remember that? True barrier, that's also a possibility, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful information. Anybody else wishing to speak or comment on this, or are we prepared to make a motion? Okay, Vice Chair McGill.
Well, I will go ahead and make a motion that we concur with the Street Dream Advisory Committee to deny the removal of liquid amber at 826 Grove Lane, and on the basis that there is no basis for removal, there are no findings.
Second.
All right, may we have a vote? Thank you. And we will go to our last tree item.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, the final item on our agenda today is another setback removal request at 1435 Gillespie Street. Specifically, this tree fronts Kowalski side of the property, and the application states property update, specifically the addition of an ADU that would fall in the footprint of this tree. The committee met on site and looked at the tree, stating that it's an older Canary Island date palm and in good health. As we reviewed the area with the current documents that we had, we were unable to determine where the ADU would be in relationship to the root and stalk of the tree, at which point the committee voted to deny the removal application without prejudice, to come back with more information, for the owner to come back with more information.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the commission have any questions or comments?
Chair Feck and Commissioners, we would add that you did receive supplemental information, and that was after the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting. It was included in your packet and available for you to consider as part of this item.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to do just like comments and questions first, and then I'll go to the speaker slips, so just in a few moments. Vice Chair McGill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming we're going to get some clarification, and then certainly there was clarification in the packages, but, so I'm just going to float my concerns so that when it comes to comments that we have them out in the open, and there's the kind of the obvious one that we have approved removal of a lot of palms recently on the basis that they don't provide canopy, with the idea that they're replaced with canopy trees. But I guess my bigger concern is that we don't get into a situation of dueling boards and commissions where we've got planning saying, no, you can't do it, and because of you got to remove the tree, or you can't do a design unless you remove the tree, and then another commission saying, but you can't remove the tree. And I just want to make sure we're not getting into that situation. But I think maybe it's premature until we hear a little bit more.
Chair Feck and Commissioner McGill, I don't think there was, I think the need to address the tree came late in the development review process.
All right, let's move to speaker slips. So I've got two. Sissy Ross. Okay, absolutely. Robert Richards. Okay.
Is it possible that maybe I could kind of lead you through a little presentation? You guys could pass this down as I...
Mr. Richards, is that what you submitted via email?
It's some of the items.
They have that in their packet.
Okay.
Okay, you'll have 2 minutes to speak, so once you start, the timer will begin.
Okay, so you guys have seen the landscape plans here, and you have an understanding. There's the existing palm tree that's conflicting with the proposed ADU. And I think there came up an issue of understanding where the ADU fell relative to this palm tree. So I provided this in your guys' documentation that shows that about 2 foot of the root structure conflicts directly with the proposed ADU. So it sounded to me like there was some confusion on whether or not the tree could be retained with the proposed ADU. There was also in this letter from the architect, which couldn't be here today, but he explained that there were 2 design iterations that happened through this process, one of which was a 2-story building that was proposed that would retain the tree. So you can see that in this example. And then the city wouldn't support it. The planning told them they wanted the total of 800 square feet on a ground level unit. So the only way to get 800 square feet into this space is what you've arrived at here, with 4-foot setbacks on either side, 5 foot from the existing building, and 15-foot setback in the front of the building. So there's not another 800 square feet to fit this structure. Okay, what else do we have here? Sorry, I'm trying to scramble through it. The owner's insurance was revoked due to fire concerns, so that was also provided in there. I provided information that this Phoenix canariensis palm is considered by fire departments to be a fire threat. It says specifically shouldn't be within 30 feet of a building, so their understanding is that's why their insurance was revoked. Also, there's information from the state saying that we should streamline ADUs, so I think it's important for this board to make the finding that that the ADU cannot be built without the palm trees removal, that the applicant acted in good faith by trying to propose a design to save the tree. The only way to accommodate the ADU is to remove the tree. And I also think it's important that the board understands that property owners should be allowed to make smart decisions with their property to remove fire threats, particularly when they can't get insurance. So I'm a landscape architect. I don't like removing trees, but in this case, I think it totally makes sense. So
Okay. Thank you
for your
very
time.
much for that presentation. That was helpful. Questions or comments? Oh, no, she wanted him to speak. Did you want to say something? Yeah, okay, please come up.
Okay, for the first thing I wanted to say is that we have offered to replace the tree. The magnolia is the city designated tree on Kowalski. So it would provide more canopy than, the palm tree doesn't provide much shade. We're 2 years into trying to get a plan to do some property enhancement there. It's many thousands of dollars, and this came up at the last minute because it takes a long time to get things through the building department. It's not, the article by the LA Times that we submitted noted that the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection forbids, they don't give grants to plant palm trees anymore. And it's not really that we want to get rid of all palm trees. I mean, palm trees have an incredible legacy in California and Santa Barbara. Certainly wouldn't want to, get rid of palm trees, but this is like a palm tree that's keeping housing from being developed. We are not in St. George. We are a mom and pop. We have diligently tried to provide housing. The tenants that we have, when we have an opening at that building, the people that come to apply to live there are just astounding, especially for this city. A cook with 2 kids wants to live in a studio apartment, or a grandmother with a kid is going to sleep in the same bed with the kid if they could get the studio apartment. And, we're not going to realize any profit from this. Our children might eventually, but it's been a long haul.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming and sharing. Thank you. All right. Questions, comments? Vice Chair McGill.
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion, so maybe I'll just maybe I'll just make it.
Okay, let's make a motion and
And then
then
we can
we'll do
discuss.
discussion.
I'm weighing everything that I saw when I went on site and all the discussions we've been having about palm trees. And I actually think this article that came in the supplemental package may be the same one that Superintendent Slack sent to us. It's very similar, if not. And then just looking at the plan, the whole planning issue and the site plans for the ADU itself. So I am going to move that we approve the request to remove the Canary Date Palm at 1435 Gillespie Street on the condition that they replace it with a street tree, either the designated street tree or one appropriate according to the Urban Forestry Department. And on the basis that this is a reasonable development.
Okay, Commissioner Clark.
I will second that.
Okay, any other discussion or questions? Okay, let's,
Yes.
oh,
Just repeat the,
You can't possibly
yeah,
want me to
well,
repeat
okay.
that. Okay.
if
let
you
us
could,
summarize.
I'd appreciate it.
I'll leave out the blunderbuss. All right, I am going to move that we approve the request to remove the canary date palm at 1435 Gillespie Street on the condition that it be replaced with a canopy tree, either the designated straight tree or another tree that, in consultation with the Urban Forestry Department, on the basis that a reasonable and practical development of the property requires removal of the tree. And I believe Chair Commissioner
yeah,
seconded.
we've got a second. Okay, everybody good? We're ready for a vote. Oh. Did you have something, Commissioner Aldana? Sorry. Okay. We might have to redo the vote thing because my screen just, oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. All right, so approved to remove. That takes us, we're through all the trees. So we are going to move to administrative and staff reports, please. The director's report.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, we have a few things we'd like to share with you this month. Number one, it's almost Halloween, so our annual Trunk or Treat event, which we do in partnership with the Santa Barbara Police Activities League and our own Santa Barbara Youth Council, will be held at the Spencer Adams parking lot on October 27th, which is Friday, from 5 to 8 p.m. If you drive up Chapala Street, you will see that decorations are in full force around the building that PAL uses in the park. And families are invited to wear costumes, collect candy, vote for their favorite decorated trunk. It is a free community event, and I believe, but don't quote me, there have been staff on site in costume as well, if you're interested in joining the fun. Secondly, every year we have our Chef Apprentice program that we host at both the Westside Center and the Franklin Center. Right now, as we do every fall, we recruit new students to join the program. We have one evening that happens on Mondays at Franklin, and then a separate group that does their cooking at the Westside on Tuesdays. And we work closely with the guidance counselors from the local high schools and try to get a broad representation from the high schools. And as you can see in your staff report, it's Dos Pueblos, San Marcos, Santa Barbara, Bishop Diego, Carpinteria, Heartland Charter School, and Olive Grove Charter School. The program begins on January 8th, and it runs for 12 weeks. And once we wrap up that entire session, where the participants learn and practice all sorts of cooking skills, they host a full meal that they sell tickets for, which then supports the program for the next year. And I think the one that was held this calendar year was a huge success. It's almost overflow capacity at this point. We might have to have 2 seatings at some point, but you never know. I would like to recognize that it's co-sponsored with Jolly Brothers Catering Company and coordinated by Donald Hardin, who's the chef, and then Anita Ho is very much involved. We also have Troy Peters, who's been involved in terms of supporting the staff and the students, and then the department also supports it financially. So we provide $10,000 in funding toward this program. The rest of the funding for the program is done through both grants that they get from various sources, as well as the funds that are raised in the annual spring dinner, so to speak. All of those funds are held by the Park Foundation, and so the Park Foundation is the nonprofit sponsor for this event. The $10,000 is within the city's budget. Also, since once we get through Halloween, it's Thanksgiving time. We have a very long partnership with the Kiwanis Club. Our adapted programs staff, which are housed in our youth activities section, will be co-hosting our annual adapted programs Thanksgiving luncheon. This was held at the Westside Center last year, and it will be held there again this year. The Kiwanis Club coordinates the food, contributes funding towards the event. They have a tremendous group of volunteers that come out that are cooking, heating, delivering, cleaning, as well as staff that support. We anticipate we could have as many as 250 people coming to a Thanksgiving luncheon. It's a really, really great event and I think a fun activity for many people that show up. And then just looking ahead for the next 2 months, since we're coming to the end of the calendar year, in November, we will have Finance Committee and City Hall staff come and talk about an initiative called Essential Santa Barbara at your November meeting. And then in December, it'll be the time of year where advisory committee members who are up for reappointment or want to apply for an advisory committee will come before the commission for that process. And so we have Street Tree Advisory Committee, Golf Advisory Committee. I think that's it, actually. Oh, maybe IPM, Integrated Pest Management, as well in December. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioner Unander LeBerge.
Thank you. Me having a Santa Barbara High School student, I would like to know, where do they find the sign-up? I don't remember hearing about this yet through our channels with the high school, but how do students find out? or sign up for it?
Yeah, Chair Feck and Commissioner Unander LeBerge, it's through the guidance counselors at each school. I am not the expert on that topic, but if you would like some further follow-up, that is where the recruitment occurs. And we'd be happy to follow up with you as well.
Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments. So that all sounds like a lot of fun, so it's great. The next thing on my agenda is the wildfire resiliency and open spaces.
So Chair Feck and Commissioners, we have Monique O'Connor giving you the presentation today. She was here for the Commission on Parma Park not so long ago. And I think you'll find this work very interesting and actually pretty exciting. Thank you.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, I'm happy to be here with you this evening to tell you about our work with regard to wildfire resiliency in open spaces. All right, so city open space, we have 18 open spaces that are within Parks and Recreation jurisdiction. Those are made up of preserves, open space parks, and our front country trails within the city. These open spaces cover over 785 acres. And our wildfire history, the city has seen an increase in wildfire occurrence and severity starting around 2008. That really became apparent. The Hesacita and Thomas fire affected city front country trails. Parma Park burned in the 2008 T fire, and the Loma fire burned TV Hill quite close to Honda Valley Park. So fire is something well known by our community. And there's a variety of factors that have contributed to this increase in threat. Climate change, we're tending towards a more arid, hotter climate, alterations to the natural fire regime due to urban development, and increases in fuel load due to certain non-natives that are more flammable, just to name a few. So the approach that we are now taking is from offense to defense. We are working actively to create a space where lower intensity flames would be encouraged should a fire move through an open space, improve fire crew access so they can readily respond to that threat. And that is the shift from fighting and reactive response to resiliency, really getting ahead of those fires. And these active approaches that we're taking right now will help and aid how a fire would behave and give some more control to the fire department with that. So Parks and Rec and the Fire Department have recently ignited a partnership to balance the expertise of both teams to both reduce wildfire risk and support the site's native ecosystems. We have secured over $3 million in funding, particularly for defensible space work, fire access and fuel breaks, vegetation management, fuel load reduction, and community outreach and education. So there are 18 project spaces proposed for this work. Those 18 spaces are the same 18 open spaces that we talked about at the beginning, covering over 785 acres. To name a few popular ones, Douglas Family Preserve, Jesucita Trail, just to name a couple. So wildfire resiliency progress to date. So far, we have completed 7 biological resource assessments. We had a biological consulting firm complete those during the last field season, and we now have them. Those are the scientific documents that are helping guide the work that we're planning to do in these open spaces. We have a revitalized webpage that I'd like to share with you quickly here. All right, so this is what our webpage looks like. Talks about our efforts, has some interactive tools for the community, priorities, discusses upcoming projects and associated dates with that work, and of course acknowledges where we are receiving funding to proceed with these projects. So big thanks to the Coastal Conservancy and to CAL FIRE. All right, so we've conducted a public meeting with regard to the work plan at Honda Valley Park. You can see our interactive map that we've been using, a new tool that both myself, contracted biologists, and the fire crew that is doing the work can access, and they help us not only track our work, but better see the resources noted in the bio reports in real time that tracks your location on site. So it's a really, really useful tool. It's called Field Maps. We have a site-specific work plan that is guiding the work at Honda Valley Park. We've hired 5 seasonal staff members as part of a seasonal vegetation management crew and have started the implementation work. Some behind-the-scenes shots from Honda Valley Park. That first photo on the left-hand side shows the crews working on a downed, really large blue gum eucalyptus that has been in place for since last year's storms. And that tree, not only has a lot of fine fuels that contribute to the fuel ladder that would carry a flame should it come across that into the canopy. That's all those loose, dry leaves you see there. It also blocked the main fire access road through Honda Valley Park that has now been cleared and access has been restored. The next photo there shows some targeted invasive removal. So again, back to that, those shared goals, we're not only targeting deadwood, we're also working to improve the health of the ecosystem. So you can see the crew carrying out a bunch of invasive vinca vine on that tarp. Third photo there is chipping. That is how a lot of the fuels that are cut and removed from the site are dealt with. And they're actually not removed from the site. They're put into this chipper and left on site as biomass. Fourth photo shows some of that road maintenance that occurs. Ruts were filled in, the road was widened, ensured that it was safe to drive, and then any vegetation that was blocking access to fire vehicles was cleared. Behind the scenes at Parma Park, we have only just started to do a little bit of work at Parma Park, particularly around restoration. The Coastal Conservancy grant is helping to expand a restoration project that was already in the planning progress. We're now able to expand that to encompass the defensible space on the western side of Parma Park. So we're able to plant that with some more fire resilient species. Next steps for wildfire resiliency. These 2 grants will carry this work through 2029. Next on the to-do list is to take those biological resource assessments through the remaining 11 open spaces that weren't tackled this past year. And you can expect to see the seasonal vegetation management crew actively working in the field season, which is October through January. There'll be some small work outside of that season, but that is the main time we'll be conducting the implementation work, and that is working around the nesting bird season. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
Awesome, thank you. That was a cool presentation. Any questions or comments on this? Commissioner Clark.
Hi, silly question. When you take a tree, the down tree, and you chip it, and you leave the chips on site, are they also not flammable?
Chair Feck and commissioners, that is a great question. It doesn't remove, any wood or litter debris is flammable, but what the chipping process does is instead of having what is called a fire ladder, having an ignitable source that goes from the ground up into the canopy, it takes that biomass and drops it all down to the ground, leaving an open space in between the canopy and the ground so the fire would not be able to jump. It would just walk up the hill. Yeah, it'd go for a hike. Correct.
That was a good question. Commissioner Chang go first. Okay, Commissioner Chang.
So what happens after March 2029? Is there a mechanism to apply for more?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Chang, after 2029, well, both departments in this new partnership will continue to apply for grant funding to keep these efforts rolling on past the funding that we currently have.
And Chair Feck and Commissioner Chang, this amount of money is unprecedented for this city. We annually had maybe $65,000 to deal with all of our open spaces. And recently through, well, the state has realized, the country has realized, the world has realized that wildfire is something we'll be facing for a long time. And the state of California, really has put a tremendous amount of money into projects that increase resiliency. So ultimately the goal is we will have landscapes that are more resilient overall, and the level of work will be maintaining that resiliency, not achieving that resiliency. Yes, we'll still need funding, but the fact that we have this grant, and Monique gets a lot of credit for putting together the proposal with a team of people, but and the fact that it's 4, 5, 6 years, many years, 5 years, 6 years, depending on how you count, we've never had the ability to really tackle these issues. Concurrent with that is supporting natural open space, which is more resilient to fire. And we haven't had these kind of funds to look at our open spaces strategically. So in addition to addressing wildfire concerns and achieving greater resiliency, we're also making better park spaces for the community. So it's like a win-win-win. Anticipating that fire's here to stay, there may be continued state funding, there may be other funding mechanisms. I think also really importantly is our partnership with the fire department. We're like working for the same reason, and the fact that they also have access to resources that we don't. And then it's a great way to also provide training. So these crews, they're part of sort of the next generation of firefighters for our community, and that's really important.
Vice Chair McGill.
Yeah. Thank you. This is, having been on this commission long enough to know that that's an extraordinary amount of money. And it's fabulous because it's, the open spaces, they have a lot of vegetation yet, but they are totally embedded and surrounded by community, which is part of what makes them so valuable, of course, in such a resource. So this is a great program. I guess my questions, one is, how are you prioritizing the work? Do you have higher priority areas to lower priorities? Are you going and trying to do this, like build roads in all the areas and then go around and do the next phase in all the areas? I'm just curious how you're prioritizing where you go when. And then just a real quick question on Elings Park, because I know Elings is a private park, and yet this is on the list, which is, I think, a good thing, but I'm just wondering how that's working.
Chair Feck and Vice Chair McGill, to first touch on how we decide what work is prioritized and where to go first. The fire department is really helping lead the priority of the work. Honda Valley Park was the first one on their list, their highest level of concern based on the fuel load that was present there and the risk to that surrounding community. So the fire department picked that as the first stop on the list. Following will be Parma Park. And once we get to a project site, how we decide what work areas to target first, at least at Honda Valley Park, and not to say this will be the same at every space, but the first task was to clear the road to regain that access, not only for emergency, but also to allow our crew more access to the site to bring in their tools, bring in their chippers. So that was task number one. Task number two was, kind of work local through the location, kind of starting at one end, working through to the other of the work areas that were put together based on that bio assessment. And your second question with regard to Elings Park, we are actually still figuring that out. We have a meeting set with Elings Park coming up in, I believe, next week. And while they are receiving some funding from this grant to do some of that work, the fire department does do work in there every year. We're going to work with them for how to best balance that.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Sure, just, I guess, wanted to go back to kind of the details here. How did we come to that March 2029 date? Is that an internal budget number? Is that mandated by the grant?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Chang, that is a date mandated by the grant.
Okay, so what's like the intensity of the cash coming out? Like, is it equal through every month? Is it every year? How do they determine that?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Chang, we, as a department, will submit quarterly disbursement reports to CAL FIRE, and that is where we are requesting to be reimbursed for the work we've done. We have a budget up to, that number that is around $3 million. And we're not limited to what we could spend each quarter. We just have to report on that and request for disbursement up to that amount.
Are we ahead of budget? Are we, where are we relative to our forecast?
Chair Feck and Commissioner Chang, we are pretty much right on budget. We have only been using Coastal Conservancy grant money so far. The CAL FIRE grant is in progress. It just got council approval a couple weeks back. So far our work has been funded fully through the Coastal Conservancy, and we are pretty much on target with our projections.
Thanks.
All right, I don't see any other comments or questions. Thank you for that presentation. It feels good to know that there's some emphasis on the fire, like proactively, because it gives us a little more peace of mind, because it's been scary when the fires do come. So thank you for all the work and effort you're putting into this.
Thank you.
Chair Feck and Commissioners, if I could just add, because I know this is a discussion item that's come up when you've considered trees. Monique indicated when we're doing this work, and we are doing it October through January to be outside bird nesting season. Oftentimes, if work needs to be done, obviously we do bird surveys and that kind of thing, but our goal is most of this work will occur in that time period, which also allows us to hire the staff to do the work. So there's seasonal staff that are doing this work. What also happens is that every area that is to be worked is flagged prior to that work, so that any vegetation that needs to stay in place because it's native does not get whacked as well. So it's a good strategy, and it's one that I think overall throughout the state, based on meetings and discussions that I've been in, it's smarter ways of doing resiliency work while still supporting native and natural habitats. So there's a lot of legwork that goes into preparing a site for the actual work to occur.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, that takes us, I guess, to the end of our meeting, because I don't see old business or new business. We have our next meeting is going to be November 15th. It's a little different because of the Thanksgiving holidays, so make sure your calendars are updated. And we can adjourn 5:17 PM. Thank you.